A search continues in Leon County for a loose inmate. KRHD there to bring you the latest as we enter day 5 of a manhunt. Plus, a violent weekend across the country after a series of mass shootings, including an incident close to home. Also, it's been hot the past few days, hot the next few days, but we have some changes on the horizon in your forecast. We'll explain ahead. Your KRHD News starts right now.
Connecting the Brazos Valley. This is KRHD News.
Hopefully they just catch this guy and get this over with as soon as possible. For a small town, this is like a big deal for, you know what I mean, for everybody. But it's time for this drama to be over.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Krhd News. Today marks day 5 in the search for escaped inmate Gonzalo Lopez. Multiple agencies and all resources are still being used, and now local businesses are stepping up to fuel the boots on the ground. KRHD News reporter Brittany DeFran connects us with community members in Centerville.
That's right. As community members in Centerville sit on the sidelines waiting for good news, some local business owners have stepped up to help some local law enforcement get through the day. Community members say this is an unusual amount of attention and movement for a small town like Centerville. Even parents have seen the impacts on their children.
The first couple of days, my child was very stressed out, had trouble sleeping, things like that. But now it just kind of, things are a little more relaxed.
But as time has passed, Wendy Baldwin says the sights and sounds have become normalized. But when it came to sending her child to school, Baldwin was confident in his safety.
The first couple of days, my child was very stressed out, had trouble sleeping, things like that. But now it just kind of, things are a little more relaxed.
Kiddos head back to school, and local business owners like Duran's Italian Restaurant have donated meals to those on the front lines.
Biggest thing that we're worried about is everybody making it home safe. I know there's something like a few hundred officers out here or whatever, and you don't want to hear that anybody gets hurt or doesn't make it home to see their family.
Owner Argan Hoti shared due to the shelter-in-place order, business has been slow, but understands safety comes first.
Business-wise, you don't really ever want it to be this slow, but as far as your family, we keep checking in on the kids.
While safety comes first, you can also tell in Centerville, so does their community.
We came together as a community, and everybody just jumped in and is helping.
As the search continues, business owners like Hoti are willing to continue helping local law enforcement, but ultimately hope this manhunt will end soon. In Leon County, Brittany DeFran, KRHD News.
Thank you, Brittany. Authorities are also reminding residents Gonzalo Lopez is extremely dangerous and not to engage him. If you do see him, please contact police. They're also taking any tips sent to them very serious. If you have any info that may lead to his recapture, they're offering a reward of $50,000. Also, we have more info about a shooting out of Milano involving teen-on-teen violence. This evening, a young man is in the hospital fighting to survive from gunshot wounds. KRHD reporter Rebecca Fiedler spoke with the Milam County Sheriff's Office today about what shook this local Texas community over the weekend.
The suspected aggressor and his accomplice in an early Sunday morning shooting in Milano have both been arrested and charged. One victim of the shooting remains in the ICU.
It all started at a prom after party in a rural home off of Highway 79. Teenagers from Milano and Rockdale high schools drank alcohol provided by one of the guests while the property owners slept. College Station resident 18-year-old Zane Taylor and his friend 17-year-old Kelvin Ortega went to the party. Police say the young men were not closely connected to party guests, but traveled in from South College Station.
So they explained to us that the kids of today, they look at Snapchat, see where the party is, and they just all show up. And if it's posted on Snapchat, that is considered an invitation.
According to police, Ortega fired a gun at the party, hitting one teenager 4 times and another once in the leg. As first responders were called to the scene, police say Zane Taylor helped his friend Ortega flee to Franklin, where police eventually caught the suspects and located a backpack containing marijuana. Both suspects have been charged with 2 counts of aggravated assault. The primary victim has remained in the ICU in stable condition, while the other victim's leg wound is being treated.
Reporting in Milano, Rebecca Fiedler, KRHD News.
2 people were killed, 3 others injured in a shooting at a flea market in Harris County on Sunday. Deputies there responded to a shooting just north of Houston around 1 in the afternoon. Harris County Sheriff's investigators believe the shots were between 5 people who were all involved. Police say no bystanders were fortunately hurt. Deputies have recovered 2 pistols and have 2 suspects in custody, which includes one of the wounded. Also, the people of Buffalo continue to feel a shared pain of what happened on Saturday, but they remain resilient in the face of adversity. Reporter John Kosich from WKBW joins us with more from Buffalo.
Yeah, on this day in Buffalo, the weather matches the mood as the shock of Saturday settles into the somber reality of Monday. Leroy Love waits for customers inside his Jefferson Avenue barbershop this Monday.
Today is extra slow because I guess what's going on down the street. The cars can't go all the way down.
The shop sits just 2 blocks away from the Tops Market where 10 people were killed and 3 wounded Saturday as Leroy was here cutting hair.
You know, you hear about this all over the country now, but I never thought it'd be in your neighborhood.
It was a busy Saturday for Leroy. One of his customers about an hour before the shooting, Deacon Hayward Patterson, one of the 10 killed.
When I think about it, he had no idea the next hour he would be gone.
Like so many in this city, Leroy is still trying to come to grips with what happened, the violent loss, the senseless nature, the hatred, and the racial motivation.
This is a world and a society that we live in that people still hate us for who we are, and we've done nothing, and we embrace everybody, but we still don't get the recognition that we need.
13 people may have been shot here, but to be clear, all in the city of 250,000 were wounded.
I'm mortified.
Paul Bergio owns a TV repair shop not far away.
And this guy attacked us from not from within, but from somewhere else. He came here to do this. It's just horrible.
Sam King believes the city of good neighbors will get through this by remaining as one. All neighborhoods, all religions, all races.
Only one person did it, so you can't blame everybody for one person, you know.
Like the people of Cleveland, the people of Buffalo have shown strength through adversity over the years. The limits of that strength and the extent of that adversity, though, never tested like this. In Buffalo, John Kosich, News 5.
The U.S. Supreme Court is expected to release new opinions today, the first opinion since that controversial leak on abortion from a few weeks back. Experts say the abortion decision is not expected to be announced today, early this morning, but could come later tonight. The court doesn't advise when any opinion will actually come out, though. All of this may have you wondering, what is the holdup with this decision? Our Joe St. George is in Washington walking us through why the country may be waiting for a while.
Here at the Supreme Court, a lot has changed over the course of the last couple of weeks. For one, a giant fence now encompasses the Supreme Court building. The justices themselves have extra security. And you may be wondering, what's the holdup regarding the official opinion? Well, to understand that, you have to first understand the history of this place.
Oyez, oyez, oyez. All persons.
Yes, this place still uses phrases from medieval Europe to begin each day, an example of how much tradition takes place here and why that leak was so surprising. It's tough for anyone to understand what really goes on behind the scenes, including journalists, unless you've actually worked here.
I clerked for Justice Breyer.
That's why I wanted to do a quick video chat with Carolyn Shapiro. She's a law professor now, but in the 90s, she was a clerk. She says justices aren't going to rush this. There's a majority opinion, a dissent opinion, and oftentimes individual justices write their own. Each opinion is circulated among the justices to make sure the lines are correct, not just grammatically, but legally. After all, the ruling will be studied for years. Recent reports suggest not all of the opinions have been shared around the court yet.
They're nowhere close to being ready to release this opinion. So I think that's the main reason. It's not just the bottom line that matters, it's also the reasoning.
Another reason why we're waiting, typically justices like to wait until the last day of their term, which is typically at the end of June, to announce their most consequential cases. That's what they did with the Affordable Care Act.
The waiting period is giving elected officials at the state and local level time to prepare for what an opinion might mean for them. It's also giving police time to prepare for protests, although Carolyn says that's probably not factoring into the delay.
I don't think that's a big part of their thinking.
One thing legal experts tell me, don't think this delay means the justices are reconsidering their votes at all. Every justice knew just how polarizing this issue would be. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
Well, we're starting off with a look at our Clark Roofing time-lapse cam. Partly cloudy skies rolling across the area. We did see a few showers and storms blossom up early this morning if you were up early enough for it, but it really didn't bring too much of an impact to the area. We are going to see some more precipitation chances on the horizon as we go forward. Highs once again landing in the 90s today. That's sort of the same story, different day. But longer term, there is going to be a change in our forecast. I know you've been waiting for it, especially because we've just been dealing with these hot string of temperatures above that 90-degree mark. Now, overnight, we're going to see more of the same as we head into our Tuesday. Lows close to that 70-degree mark. Highs tomorrow even warmer in the mid to upper 90s. That's when we're forecasting a high temperature of 97 degrees here in Bryan College Station. We're going to see more of the same the next day. But then as we start to work into the second half of the week, that's when we're going to start talking about maybe a new word that you haven't heard in a while, a cold front that's actually going to bring some changes to our temperatures as we go forward into next week. But long term, at least for this week, you can expect those hot strings of temperatures to continue going forward. When we look at our future track, you're going to see a little bit of cloud cover beginning to work into the area. It looks like Tuesday morning going into Tuesday evening, and we really don't see the effects of this until we get to the back half of the week, say Thursday going into Friday. That's when we're going to begin to introduce the chance of showers, and then as we go into next week, that's when we're going to start to see those temperatures knock down just a bit closer to normal values. We've been dealing with these highs in the 90s. We're going to see a change. It just looks like we're going to have to wait a little bit, at least throughout the course of our week. For the rest of our week, you'll notice it's going to be 97 for our high tomorrow. Then as we go into the next day, more high temperatures above that 97-degree mark, 97 for our Wednesday. Then as we go into Thursday, 98. Friday, then we introduce that chance of precipitation. And then as we roll into the week ahead, we begin to see the effects of that cold front and our highs. Take a look at Monday. Back closer to normal values, a high temperature of 85, low of 68, 87 on Tuesday. And we start to level off just a bit as we head into the week ahead. You may have heard this last week. 6 power plants went offline unexpectedly last Friday ahead of another weekend of high energy demand here in Texas. ERCOT was asking plants to delay maintenance due to this early heat wave, although they say those delays are unrelated to plant outages. Now, typically this time of year, we see scheduled outages for plants to do maintenance to prepare for the summer heat demands, but already this month, demand has reached near record highs from previous summers. Early voting for the Texas primary runoff election started today. This election is a collection of races that did not have clear winners after the March 1st primary election. On the ballot, you can expect candidates for Attorney General, Lieutenant Governor, and some House of Representative seats, depending on what district you live in. To see a sample ballot before going out to the polls, check your county's website. Early voting ends this Friday, May 20th. Election Day is next Tuesday, May 24th. In health-related news, a recent study found 2 COVID-19 symptoms could persist for 9 months or more. The study, published in the Journal of Infection, sought to identify COVID symptoms lasting months after the initial infection disappeared. Researchers found 20% of patients still showed signs of fatigue and breathlessness at month 9. In addition, nearly all of those patients didn't return to optimal pre-COVID physical health. Researchers also said older patients hospitalized with multiple symptoms are more likely to develop long COVID. Counseling services are in high demand since the pandemic. KRHD News reporter Diamond Dixon is speaking with a local counselor to break down a stigma associated with mental health and how many people are in need of services.
We've seen many people struggle with their mental health in the past 2 years. A local counselor, Cheryl McKeska, shares that there is a counselor shortage to keep up with the demand of counseling services.
In March of 2022, the World Health Organization announced that worldwide depression and anxiety had increased by 25%. So I personally never thought that I would work or be a part of, be a part of a pandemic.
She says there's a stigma when discussing the topic of mental health.
There's been a stigma attached to dealing with mental health issues, to talking about it in general. But with the challenges that COVID has presented, people are finding themselves in a more desperate but yet willing place to talk about their mental health issues. And so that's been perhaps a silver lining that has come from COVID.
With a large increase in depression and anxiety, patients in the Brazos Valley are outnumbering counselors and are having to be placed on a wait list.
We already were seeing an increase of clients before COVID. There already were waiting lists. And so since the addition of COVID, it has really extended those wait lists to where folks are having to drive out of town to find services quicker than perhaps we might offer here.
McKeska says the list is even longer for children, but one local mom is making sure her kids seek counseling at an early age after feeling trapped and isolated during COVID.
I wanted to make sure that my kids were more like emotionally literate, I guess, than I was. I wanted them to know that, you know, a lot of people struggle with their mental health, and it's okay to go out and get help from somebody.
Stubblefield says her daughters, ages 6 and 9 years old, believe everyone should have a counselor.
There's only so much people can handle before everybody has been living in crisis management, that it's getting to the point where where people are saying, I have to have help if I'm going to keep going.
McKeska says talking to someone is the first step. If you would like counseling services, she says you can reach out to your primary care physician or your local counselor. In Bryant, Diamond Dixon, KRHD News.
JetBlue is not giving up its bid to buy Spirit Airlines. The news feed starts with JetBlue now asking Spirit shareholders to reject a proposal by Frontier to buy the low-budget airline. JetBlue made a $3.6 billion bid that was rejected by Spirit Airlines board. Companies are doing more to keep their employees happy in this job market. Goldman Sachs is now giving its senior bankers as many vacation days as they want. Big name companies like Goldman now have to compete with startups and a workforce that is more willing to move from one job to another. Now, it's not just vacation. More companies are on board with remote work. U.S. employers are easing up on return to work plans as remote work has become the norm in so many places. A new working arrangements and attitudes survey says that bosses are more willing to let employees work from home 2 to 3 days a week as opposed to just 1 to 2, which was the thought process in summer of 2020. Now, businesses still dealing with the fallout from the Great Resignation are looking to the class of 2022 to fill open positions. New graduate hiring is expected to increase 31% this year compared to spring of last year. That is according to one survey from April. The number reflects a need for young and frankly cheap talent.
Hiring a mid-career professional is going to cost a business much more than it would to hire a new college graduate. In fact, they might be able to hire multiple recent graduates at a lower cost than hiring a mid-career professional.
Now, the strong labor market for new grads is a change from 2020 when the pandemic created one of the worst labor markets in recent history. Only 67% of recent grads with a bachelor's degree found a job in 2020 compared to 74% back in 2021 and 76% before the pandemic.
Being hired into a weaker labor market could have some long-term disadvantages. That said, the recession or the loss of jobs related to the pandemic appears statistically to have been a blip. Hopefully the shortness of that shrinkage in the economy will not have maybe the same long-term effects that it would have if it was a multi-year recession.
Not all industries are experiencing the same increase in demand. For computer science and engineering grads, the average salary is trending up and some positions pay 6 figures. It's a different story for communications or humanities majors. Entry-level salaries are expected to go down this year. Well, some companies are making long-term changes after 2 years of supply chain challenges. The factors that could help shift more manufacturing to the United States.
And now on to the latest in Russia's war in Ukraine. Finland and Sweden are both officially announcing steps to become members of NATO. Russia is taking note, but after previously threatening retaliation, now they say their membership in NATO won't make a difference. ABC's Ika Jachi is in Washington with more.
Today, another blow to Russia. Finland and Sweden taking formal steps to apply for NATO membership, which would increase NATO's presence on Russia's border. Finland and Sweden's joining NATO would be considered an escalation in the eyes of Russian President Vladimir Putin, who previously called the alliance's expansion into Eastern Europe a threat and cited it as a reason for invading Ukraine. The Kremlin responding this morning, saying their application won't make a difference. On the ground, Russia pushing to take full control of the port city of Mariupol. This video, posted online by pro-Russian separatists, show fire attacks raining down on the steel plant where the last Ukrainian fighters are holed up. Inside the plant, a Ukrainian soldier singing as explosions can be heard in the background. Yet, Ukrainian fighters are making progress, most notably in the northeast, where they successfully pushed Russian forces out of the area surrounding Kharkiv. The city's governor saying shelling intensity has significantly reduced. American-made weapons making the difference. These howitzers now in the hands of Ukrainian fighters. The British Defense Ministry also estimating Russia has lost 1/3 of its ground combat forces that were initially committed to the invasion. NATO adding Russia has been unable to reach its strategic goals in the country.
They failed to take Kiev. They are pulling back from around Kharkiv.
The Kremlin is saying it plans to send up to 2,500 reservists to the war in Ukraine. And on the economic front, McDonald's now saying it will completely sell off its Russian business. The global fast food giant entered the Russian market 32 years ago. Ike Ajachi, ABC News, Washington.
Here at home in consumer-related news, a state audit of the Texas Department of Insurance is showing a massive security breach exposed personal information of almost 2 million residents for nearly 3 years. The department saying the personal information of 1.8 million workers who filed claims between March 2019 and early January of this year was available to members of the public online. The department says they were made unaware of the breach in January. The department says it will also provide 12 months of free credit monitoring and ID protection service to anyone whose data was breached. In more consumer-related news, the U.S. and Europe are racing to find answers to a global food chain crisis. The countries are meeting in France today for their joint trade and technological council. Leaders are expected to discuss solutions to the supply chain following Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. It comes as the war cut off supplies of grain, fertilizer, and vegetable oil from Ukraine. Today's meeting also comes in the wake of India's ban on wheat exports. India, if you don't know, is actually the world's second largest wheat producer.
The supply chain continues to be stressed. So the best analogy I can give you is it's a patient that's been sick and then gets another sickness. And so that's what we're seeing with today's supply chain. It's just, different issues, different problems, and the supply chain can't seem to recover.
The COVID-related lockdowns in China are the latest thing that supply chain experts are watching. Patrick Penfield is a supply chain professor at Syracuse University and says that he expects to see even more problems in a month or two because that's when the new inventory won't be arriving. Now, 2 years of supply chain issues have some companies making long-term changes to how they operate, building more resiliency and redundancy into their supply chain. Scott Paul with the Alliance for American Manufacturing says that economic and political risks are encouraging companies to shift their processes closer to the United States.
You have to build some redundancy into your production. You can't rely on a chip from a factory that may not be there for a year because of either a backlog or some other disruption. And you want to be able to control your inventories and some of your other costs a little better.
I'm also a proponent of a globalized supply chain. So I believe in trade, and I think trade is really what makes the world go around. My concern is, again, those situations where we're very dependent on other countries for pharmaceuticals and high technology and medical devices.
Now, they both say the fact that energy costs are lower in the United States compared to the rest of the world may also help with shifting more production here, but there are still challenges.
The biggest obstacle is not labor cost differential, because that's a very small part of manufacturing these days. The bigger challenges may be for industries that virtually disappeared altogether. It's very hard to build something from the ground up.
Now, as far as future prices, Paul says that he thinks the cost of carbon emissions will be included in products in a way they haven't been in the past. Now, that could also be what gets more factories moving closer to customers. Now, the options can be expensive for couples struggling with infertility. Embryo adoption is a more affordable choice that's still relatively unheard of.
She was frozen 18 years, which is unbelievable.
How her family hopes their story will inspire others to keep their options open.
Texas A&M saw some big wins on the weekend on the baseball field over Mississippi State. For the latest in sports, here's WTAW's Zach Taylor.
Here's your 25 Sports Update with WTAW Zach Taylor.
Hey KRHD viewers, Texas A&M baseball's jumped up to number 6 in this week's NCAA poll following a series sweep over Mississippi State. The Aggies will wrap up their regular season this weekend at Ole Miss. A&M softball is headed to a 20th straight NCAA tournament. The Ags take on Minnesota in the Norman Regional this Friday. Number 12 men's golf sits in 4th place following round 1 of the NCAA Bryan Regional at Traditions. Senior Sam Bennett led the way individually at 4 under. The Dallas Mavericks routed the Phoenix Suns last night 123-90 in Game 7 of their Western Conference semifinal series. Dallas advances now to take on Golden State. Heartache for the Dallas Stars last night as they were upended by the Calgary Flames 3-2 in overtime. The loss ends the Stars' first postseason run in 2 years. The Houston Astros are going for their 13th win in the last 14 tries as they're currently visiting the Boston Red Sox. First pitch was at 6:10 at Fenway. Meanwhile, the Texas Rangers go for their second straight victory as they host the LA Angels tonight. First pitch for that one is at 7:05 at Globe Life Field. From the WTAW Sports Studio, I'm Zach Taylor.
McDonald's was once the first fast food chain to open in the Soviet Union, and now the company wants to sell its 850 restaurants in Russia. The chain says the country is not consistent with their values, and they plan to pay their more than 60,000 employees until a sale is finished. Well, the Senate's top Republican says the Senate is expected to approve a $40 billion aid package to Ukraine. This is video of Mitch McConnell leading a group of Republicans from the Senate to meet with Ukraine's president in Kyiv over the weekend. McConnell also said he supports Finland and Sweden joining NATO. Well, it is an option for couples struggling with infertility that's been around for decades, but embryo adoption is still relatively unheard of, even though it is among the more affordable options. Michelle London introduces us to a couple who chose that route and their 5-year-old daughter born from that embryo that was frozen for more than a decade.
You work on the sun and I work on the moon.
10-year-old Emily Wilson and her little sister, 5-year-old Marley,
Ooh, yeah, like with that.
love piecing together this rather complex puzzle.
Yeah, that fits perfectly.
Teamwork,
Oh, thanks.
focus, and determination
Okay,
eventually leads to all those missing pieces coming together, forming one big picture.
that.
Emily and Marley's parents, Marty and Elizabeth Wilson, enjoy watching their daughters grow into their own. So Emily's 10, Marley's 5. Tell me about their different personalities.
Emily is easygoing and let's
we did it.
go with the flow, whereas Marley is much more assertive.
Emily, let's work on Jupiter later. Let's just worry about them.
The Wilsons, married for 17 years, will tell you that this family of 4 is their big picture and a dream come true. But it took a while to get here. The couple was married for 5 years when they decided to expand their family. Elizabeth, 38 at the time, easily became pregnant with Emily.
No fertility treatments, no problems.
So 2 years after Emily's birth, the Wilsons decided to try for baby number 2.
And that's when the struggling started.
After 3 years of trying, the couple knew their chances of conceiving were slim.
She was capable of conceiving a child. There was just a challenge associated with the number of eggs that are available.
So Elizabeth and Marty first started an online search for traditional adoptions. Then they learned about embryo adoption. It's when an embryo created for in vitro fertilization is adopted, then transferred into the adoptive mother, who carries the baby to full term. The Wilsons knew it was the perfect fit. They joined Snowflakes, a Christian embryo adoption program. They match embryo donors with adoptive families. Just how many embryos are frozen across the country right now?
Well, Michelle, this is really going to amaze you, but in my estimation, it's well over 1 million embryos in frozen storage.
Snowflake's vice president, Kimberly Tyson, says this could be due to fertility clinics not informing clients about embryo adoption. She says this form of adoption is among the most cost-effective, at around $9,000. A traditional domestic adoption can cost up to $35,000. After months of paperwork and home interviews, the Wilsons were matched with their embryo,
Marley Jade,
who we now know as Marley. How long had Marley been frozen?
She was frozen 18 years, which is unbelievable.
The rest is history.
Was carrying her was like, living the dream. She's a member of the family, like just as much as Emily is biologically.
The Wilsons will tell you
Flip it over.
Marley is the piece that completes their family puzzle. Elizabeth and Marty hope sharing their story will inspire others to keep their options open.
Don't give up on that dream and just keep going until it's, until you have what it is that gives you peace.
In Parker, Colorado, I'm Michelle London reporting.
Incredible story, Michelle. Thank you. Now, flower festivals are big business and preparations start a year in advance. But warming temperatures are adding a new challenge to getting the timing just right. What scientists are finding about the timing of plants that are blooming right now.
Well, I know we've kind of been like a broken record for the past few weeks talking about the rinse and repeat forecast of high temperatures above that 90-degree mark, lows close to the 70s. Well, we're going to sound like a broken record today, but we're going to jump ahead to our future track so we can give you a little bit of the change that we've been hinting at as we go into the week ahead. So for tomorrow, we're going to see high temperatures even warmer, close to 97 degrees. Wednesday, more of the same, close to 97 degrees, a little bit warmer on Thursday. And then Friday, we begin to introduce the change as we're tracking our next cold front moving into the area. This is our future track. Wednesday morning, you can see cloud cover steadily moving towards the Brazos Valley. Going into Thursday, more cloud cover kind of exiting the area. And then we're going to introduce a chance for some precipitation. Short term, though, for tonight, as we go forward into Tuesday, we're not going to see much. Some low clouds moving across the area. Cloud cover on Thursday, and then as we go into the weekend ahead, that's when we're going to introduce a little bit better chance of precipitation. It looks to come on, say, Saturday. So what can you expect short term? Let's take a look at our 10-day forecast. Temperatures are going to land close to the 70s as we head overnight, and you'll notice that here going forward. Going into the day ahead, it's going to be even warmer, folks. 97 for tomorrow, 97 on Wednesday, 98 degrees for our high on Thursday. And then as we go into the weekend, we introduce that chance for a few showers, scattered showers and storms possible on Saturday, 96 degrees on Saturday and Sunday. And then the change arrives. Take a look at our high temperature on Monday, 85 degrees, 68 for our low overnight, 87 once again, with a little bit of a chance for some of the wet stuff.
The family of Henrietta Lacks heads to court tomorrow in its lawsuit over her cells, how they're used, and the family's lack of compensation. Lacks cells were taken decades ago without her consent, and they've been used for all kinds of scientific advancements over the years. Her family is now suing Thermo Fisher Scientific for mass producing and selling her cells. They say they don't want the advancements to stop. They just want their fair share.
If you take a medicine, or if you put your makeup on in the morning, or you shaving in the morning, or whatever, my grandmother's cells have been a part of that development of making that product that you're using. And a lot of people don't know that.
Thermo Fisher Scientific is seeking to have the lawsuit dismissed. Now, a lot of women are considering changing careers or are re-entering the workforce. A nationwide nonprofit that gives women an outfit for that first job interview is seeing more people looking for help right now. Tomorrow, how their services go beyond that, also giving women the confidence to get the job. But still to come today.
When you look out to 2045, which isn't that far away, we estimate gas tax to decline significantly and sales tax to represent 60% of the money for transportation, and that is not sustainable.
The changes that some places are now considering with electric car sales growing. New federal money is coming to help cities to make their roads safer. New numbers this week are expected to show that U.S. traffic deaths continue to rise. The Safe Streets and Roads for All program is making $5 billion available to help bring those numbers down. Now, this money will go toward things like sidewalk improvement, growing public transit, and slowing down traffic. Well, the electric car boom is coming. Last quarter, 4.5% of car sales were electric vehicles, according to Kelley Blue Book. That's the highest ever. By 2050, that number is expected to rise to 60%. Dan Grossman explains how this is expected to hurt transportation budgets and what states are doing to recoup those much-needed dollars.
I've always been interested in cars. I loved them when I was a kid. I started driving when I was 14.
When we are passionate about the words we speak, they tend to flow freely and bountifully.
I went out there and I thought, well, I'd like to be an engineer.
Such is the case with Bill Wentz, who is a professor of engineering.
I worked at Boeing and actually did first report. We had sliders. This is before BC, before computers.
As much as he is a master of storytelling.
We went through preliminary design, wind tunnel test, flight test, sold it to the Air Force.
I tell you this because it all bleeds into the story of why Bill bought his first electric car in 2012.
I've always been enamored with a smoother engine for a car and something more efficient.
Bill is among the few nationwide who have gone full electric with his ride as he shuttles from his home in Kansas to his job at Wichita State University.
I was planning to exit here, but I don't think I will.
And for all the good his ride does him, the saved gas, the lower maintenance, it's setting up to be a challenge for his state's transportation department.
Currently in Kansas, about 25% of the money that helps fund transportation is gas tax, state gas tax.
In every state, regular gas is taxed at a different rate. It ranges from 9 cents per gallon in Alaska to 58 cents per gallon in Pennsylvania, with an average of 30 cents nationwide. If you drive diesel, the rate is higher. Additionally, the federal government taxes 18 cents per gallon. Then you add on extra fees for things like greenhouse gas programs and tank storage, which vary by state, and it comes out to be a good chunk of money at the pump. But electric vehicles don't use gas, so as their numbers rise, states plan to lose out on tens of millions of dollars each year that would otherwise help fund projects we all stand to use, like public transit, highway work, and road construction.
These are big investments that need to stand the test of time.
It's left transportation secretaries like Julie Lorenz searching for solutions.
When you look out to 2045, which isn't that far away, we estimate gas tax to decline significantly and sales tax to represent 60% of the money for transportation. And that is not sustainable in the state of Kansas or really anywhere.
To counter it, registration fees on electric vehicles are higher, but that's a flat rate that doesn't account for miles driven. So states are discussing the possibility of introducing mileage fees that would charge for miles driven, not gallons filled. Currently, Oregon is the only state in the country with such a program, but it's voluntary as it charges drivers 1.8 cents per mile instead of a gas tax, and 12 other states have received federal grants to explore similar options.
So as we move away from paying based on the kind of fuel we use to the kind of infrastructure, the amount of infrastructure we use, we have to think about pricing it differently.
The impediment to the electric car now is just the range.
Bill said he's happy to pay such a fee as he doesn't drive a whole lot and has conviction that the car he drives is the car of the future.
It's going to work out.
I'm Dan Grossman.
Well, thank you so much for watching Krhd News at 6. I'll be back tonight at 10. Until then, have a good evening.